Good afternoon. I'm Peter Coll with Mobile Air Climate Systems Association, and welcome to the podcast. You may see something a little different. We don't have Steve. Steve is actually behind the camera today, but our pleasure to welcome our guest, Jeff Cox, or Jeff as we call him, President of Automotive Maintenance and Repair Association.
That's correct.
And they also serve a group called MAP, Motorist Assurance Program. Jeff, welcome.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Our pleasure. This is our first, my first anyway, I think Jeff's first, time experiencing kind of a co-joined event where AMRA is on the front end of the MACS 2024 conference. And a little different for AMRA, a little different for us, but so far so good. We're only into day one.
Day one.
But so far, it's like to say, the building hasn't burned down, and you've got some great attendance today at your event. Tell us a little bit about what the Motorist Assurance Program technical conference, the winter one specifically, but your technical conference, what's that all about?
Yeah, we bring in industry leaders from all across the country that really bring us insights into the changing technology or how things are changing how we service vehicles. Mm-hmm. And we take those insights and we go back and we look at our standards and we update our standards so that when it gets to the shops, when they're servicing cars, that they are using the latest information to make good decisions, to recommend the right repairs, the right parts to the consumer mm-hmm. in a way that helps them build trust with their customers.
So you talk about your standards, and of course my familiarity is primarily with SAE standards, which are not that different than MAP standards, but MAP standards are kind of a guideline, maybe more than a guideline, maybe a little stricter than a guideline, but it's a guideline, and the idea is that anyone who's part of the Motorist Assurance Program, any shop mm-hmm. who's part of the Motorist Assurance Program, will use the same criteria in evaluating replacement parts or suggested or required repair parts based on the guidelines and the criteria that your folks put forth.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of people are familiar with the inspection with the green, yellow, and red format. Mm-hmm. And so we take every part on a car, from mm-hmm. an air conditioning compressor to a windshield wiper, and we document every reason that component could fail. Mm-hmm. And so when technicians do that inspection, they're only recommending parts and services to consumers that fall within these guidelines.
Right.
And we use these conferences to really make sure that as things change, our stuff is current and accurate.
Mm-hmm. So I got involved with AMRA a number of years ago when I was in the private industry side of things, and being a member of AMRA drove me to coming to the technical conference, mm-hmm. and a little self-serving in our perspective at the time, where we wanted to kind of get introductions to some of the other AMRA members. And then that kind of progressed somehow, some way. I ended up being a technical co-chair for AMRA, and so we would review the presentations and so forth. But one of the real interesting things is not only are you reviewing the standards and the criteria you have for repairs, you're bringing your members, particularly your service provider members, information and technical presentations from industry experts, whether it be Honeywell like we had today mm-hmm. or Doc Watson like we had today, mm-hmm. so that they can learn and they can take that information back to their company and then decide how they can best use that for more training for their employees, or to set a strategic vision moving forward as to maybe what kind of repairs they might get into.
Yeah, absolutely. And you probably have a similar experience at your events when you look out into the room and you think, wow, we have all of these experts here. Mm-hmm. And so how do you get the experts together to have them share the information, and you have another audience, whether it be technicians, shop owners, people that work within service provider organizations, and it just creates a great environment for those two sides to come together.
Right.
And I think you probably experienced that too. And probably even at your conventions, you have so many great organizations that come to yours. Mm-hmm. And it's just a great opportunity to connect all of the people in our industry together to solve problems that we all face every day.
Right, and we face a shared problem, you being president of AMRA, me being president of MACS, where anytime we bring these technical presentations, we need to make sure that they're relatively generic. And because we want to bring them the technical information, we don't want just a marketing guy standing up there saying, rah, rah, only use us, everybody else is terrible. And I remember when we would review these presentations, that was always kind of a key component. You guys just do such a great job of making sure that the information is specific across a broad spectrum of the application, not just for a specific company that is doing the presentation.
Yeah, it's a delicate balance.
Oh, sure.
You know, you have some of our audience is very technical, and some of our audience is maybe in the sales or marketing or communications department. And so we really try to have presentations that are very technical based, but then also are interesting enough to someone that may not be as technical, to where maybe they've never done that on a vehicle before, but at least they can follow along. So yeah, it's an interesting balance that we face every meeting, and it was the co-chairs like yourself that really helped ensure that the presentations were going to come off the right way.
Right. And you've got some real long-time participants in this, and I'll only refer to one, you know, Denny Bowen, Denny from Hunter Engineering, who really has been a cornerstone of the AMRA team or AMRA family for years and years. I think served as kind of an interim president at one time. Correct.
Yeah, before me.
Before you. Yep. And a little bit about you. You came to AMRA from Bridgestone Firestone?
I did. So, you know, I spent a lot of time at Bridgestone Firestone, known as Bridgestone Retail Operations, and I got involved with AMRA when I was in the training department for Bridgestone. So when I first started, Daryl Rowe, who was a co-chair and worked for Bridgestone, said, "Hey, I want you to start attending these meetings. The next one is this time." And I'm like, "Well, tell me about these meetings. Tell me about this organization." And so that was the first time I was introduced to AMRA, was at Bridgestone. And so I started there in the training department, and then I went over into merchandising and ran certain categories for that organization. And at some point, the board had asked me, "Hey, would you consider coming over as a staff?" And so 7 years ago, I made that move from a audience member and technical co-chair to staff.
And I don't know if this is kind of a secret, but I think a relocation might have had something to do with that. They might have wanted you to relocate down to a different state?
They did, but that actually isn't the reason why I took it. So yes, Bridgestone, they were relocating to Nashville, and I was part of that move. So we had realtors at our house, we had neighborhoods in Nashville picked out, and so we were in on the move. And this opportunity had come about, and so my wife and I thought about it all weekend, and I'm not going to say it didn't play a part, because it did allow us to stay in Chicago.
Sure.
But more importantly, I really felt passionate about the organization, and I really thought, how do I want to spend my next years? And I looked back at what could I do in this role, and how many people am I going to meet, and it was kind of a no-brainer. And even had a conversation with the COO of Bridgestone at the time, and he had said, "Jeff, I think you ought to do this."
Really?
And so that was really clear that I should go do this, and it also, there was a comfort level, because he had always said, "Hey, you know, you're always welcome."
Right.
And so, but not that I needed that, but it's always nice to hear.
Sure.
Because it's a risk.
Right,
you know,
that there weren't going to be hard feelings.
Yes.
That the relationship would continue as strong as ever. You could leverage your experience and your contacts and your relationship with Bridgestone Firestone or Bridgestone Retail Operations and the folks there to help support AMRA. Tell us a little bit about your board. How's your board made up? Not necessarily the number of people, but the type of people that are on the board, the companies they might represent.
Yeah, so our board is made up of a mixture of both service providers and non-service providers. The individuals on the board do hold executive level positions within those organizations. And one of the things that I find really fascinating about our board is how involved they are in the strategy creation, in the all of the parts of the organization, whether it's finance or marketing, and it's a working board, and these are executives that have full-time jobs at least, right? And they're very, very busy individuals, but they're always there. They're always there to support what the staff wants to do. They're always there to guide us, and so I'm really privileged to work for such a really great board.
And they're not only members of AMRA, they're from the service provider side, they're users of the MAP program.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's the service providers and the big companies like Goodyear and Bridgestone, but there's also other large organizations like Napa and Advanced Auto Parts and Hunter Engineering who leave this room and help us build standards and go into a boardroom and say, all right, how do we execute on these?
Right.
And so it's pretty vast. We have people from the training organizations, we have people from all different functional areas, and they all jump in and lead and help lead this organization.
Yeah, and one of the things that I noticed, when I first started attending AMRA meetings, and then as part of a technical co-chair, and now kind of coming back as an adjunct partner, if you will, in this particular event, is the quality of people that you have there. Many people that I've known for years and years that are just really nice, great people. We won't name them individually, Frank Cassell. But other people like the director of training from Standard Motor Products, Ryan Koyman. And I don't want to single Ryan out. Ryan's just a fantastic guy. But these are high-level people who've been down the road before and are super helpful in making the suggestions. And I remember that was always one of the challenges when we were doing this. Probably will be a challenge today or tomorrow. Is you're trying to pry the ideas. What do you guys want to see in the future? But folks like that, they know what's happening at the shop level, and they're really able to contribute back to you to say, here's take Standard Motor Products for example. Maybe they say, we're seeing a whole bunch of this kind of compressor off these cars come back under warranty and there's nothing wrong with them, or they've been misdiagnosed or something. Right. And then they say, we ought to have somebody come in who represents that kind of car, that kind of system, and tell us why that is. What are we missing? And that'll help all of us together.
Yeah, that group of people, every time we start a meeting, as you know, we go through the 10-year. How long have you been associated with this group? And we have everything from the beginning, 30+ years, like Denny Bowen, to folks. This is their first meeting, and what always really impresses me is folks that have been around for 15 years or 20 years, and there's how passionate they still are. Sure. And like they still want to bring up ideas. This is what I think you should have a topic on, or this is who should present. Right. And you just think people would get burnt out, but they don't. Right. And I think it's interesting to me. And you're right. People like Ryan and Frank, they're really anchors. Sure. Frank has been around for a long time, and luckily I'm on his good terms today because I just plugged a product of his in the meeting. So I made Frank happy today. But Ryan, right from his first meeting, I knew he was going to be one of those individuals that's going to be involved and really help lead these meetings. And he is someone that started attending the meeting and now is on our board. Yeah. So that he's a great leader in the industry. I really enjoy every conversation I have with him.
Yeah, and you just have there's so many people you just see year after year after year, or meeting after meeting after meeting, and even people who really don't have anything more from a business standpoint directly to gain from it. But the networking opportunities are just incredible. And I always kind of profess that back to my former employer that, sometimes it's not about going to a trade show or going to an event and collecting a bunch of business cards. It's about those little nuggets you get from one person that you can then confirm with another person and then get some more information from a third person. Before you know it, you've got a strategy you can work on. And if it weren't for those networking opportunities, you wouldn't have those. And I know that's a big part of your event.
Yeah, a good example of that is a gentleman, John Dixon, from Garage Gurus. He's been there now 6 years. and maybe longer than that, but he's been attending our meeting for about 6 years. And when he started attending our meeting, one of his goals was really to build his own brand. He wanted to become someone like yourself that's really well known within the industry and had a lot of respect from his peers. And so he really worked at it and used our meetings as a networking opportunity to just talk to folks, to talk about not only his credentials, but his company's credentials and how he can help support. And then, really pressured us, hey, I want to present, when can I get up there? And presented for the first time and did a great job. And that is someone that I've really seen evolve over the years and really went from somebody that maybe had been known in his group, but maybe not so much known across the industry. And now he's a pretty well-known individual.
Right.
And then we have someone like, Ashley from Tubbo Towels. And she's, not
what a great name, Tubbo Towels.
Right. Give them a plug.
Shop rags, right?
Yeah. And she's not an automotive person, and she doesn't sell directly to anybody in that room. But she comes for a couple reasons. She comes because she knows that if she gives out some samples here and there, she gets people talking about her brand. She's going to network with some folks, and she's just continuing to build this organization up. And at the end of the day, she says it's the right thing to do. This is the right organization to be involved with. But through the networking opportunities, I think it really helps organizations grow. And I'm sure you see that within your meetings.
We do. We, as you're aware, we have a bunch of networking opportunities because we think that's just such a critical part. We have a trade show, where people can touch and feel, and that's something that's a little bit of a lost art these days. But automotive service technicians, that's how the Snap-ons, the MACS, the Matcos of the world have survived all this time, is they get the guy on the truck and he gets to feel that torque wrench.
Right.
And then once he gets to feel it, now he has to have it. And so, the same kind of thing here. But networking is just so important for both of our industries to be able to have, whether it's personal growth in your career, but as importantly, to be able to grow your company's reach and maybe find new opportunities that are out there. Talk a little bit about two of my other favorite people. Well, one of my other favorite people and my other nemesis, Joellen.
Yes.
Never had a bad thing to say. Well, at least never that I heard. About anything. What a fantastic staff member she is for you guys.
No doubt. Joellen is the glue that really holds this whole thing together. I don't know where we'd be without Joellen. I really don't. She works so hard to make everybody's experience wonderful, and she just doesn't. She's relentless in that. And I remember when I first joined the organization, my first day, I had talked about we're going to be of service. That everything that we do is we're going to be of service. We are going to help our members solve problems. We're not going to be an organization that is a barrier. And I said it one time, and she took it to heart, and she has just carried that through. More than anybody, even including myself. And so she is responsible for so much. I don't even know where to begin. I need her to be around for 100 years because I don't know what we'll do without her. And luckily, she's going to be around for a while. So I feel lucky to have her, but she's the greatest.
And Mike's barbecue.
And her husband's a world-class barbecue person.
I know. It's incredible.
If you've never had it, you should have it. Come and have it sometime, because he is, and also the greatest guy ever. And so they are a perfect couple, and he's certainly an extension of our team. I mean, last night he's taping cords on the floor and doing all the things that he doesn't have to do. But we really, really appreciate.
So when I first came to my first AMRA meeting, I met Tim Tierney. And Tim, what position did Tim hold at that time? Do you recall? He was kind of like Mr. Everything?
Yeah, he was on the operations side.
Okay.
So, Tim Hatcher was coming in, and as a long-term strategy to replace Tim Tierney. And so, yeah, Tim Tierney was really responsible for all of the presentations that we saw. He was responsible for the website stuff, updating the UICS. And, you know, and somebody that had been around in this association for a long time, when Timothy Hatcher came on, he had big shoes to fill with Tim Tierney, and has done a nice job. But we wouldn't be where we are today without Tim Tierney.
Yeah. So, Timothy Hatcher, you thought I was just going to kind of pass you by. You thought I was just kind of ignore you. But my experience with Timothy Hatcher has been really just the same as it has been with Joe Ellen. What a fantastic find he was for AMRA. And to be honest with you, if I thought he would move to Philadelphia, we'd be battling over who was going to pay him more money.
I know that.
Yeah.
I know your relationship with Timothy, and I think if Timothy were to ever leave me, he would want to go work for you. That's clear. He is a great find, and I don't know. You ever heard the story about how Timothy and I met?
No.
Okay.
No.
So Timothy is a Firestone guy as well.
I knew that.
So when I started at Bridgestone Retail, I didn't have any store experience, and so they said, well, Jeff, we want you to go work in a store for you know, a couple of weeks to understand the operations and the flow. So pick a store, and you know, and we'll get it all set up. So I picked the store closest to my house. So I go there, and Timothy Hatcher is the manager. So my experience with him goes back to my Firestone days.
Okay.
And so he, you know, helped me through all that stuff, and it was a good time, and it was great meeting him. And then as a coacher, one day, Timothy Hatcher is there, and he's now a staff member for AMRA. And I said, oh, what are you doing here? And so it was good to connect with him. And he's another, I've never met somebody that learns as fast as he does. And him and Joellen, you're right, they both, their expectation is perfection.
Yeah.
But they come about it completely differently. They're almost polar opposites. And so Joellen's great because she's the cheerleader, and every stupid idea I have, she says, this is the greatest, I'm ready, when do we start? Right. And Timothy says, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of, we're not doing that. And so what we end up with is something that does work.
Right.
And so Timothy is my balance.
Yeah.
I need him to balance me out because he is a realist and he knows what we can accomplish. But there are often times where he will say, hey, this can't be done. And then 2 hours later, he says, I figured out how we could do that.
Right.
And that is a quality that I just really admire, is how fast he can pick up something and go from a novice to an expert level in a very short amount of time. Yeah,
we have a similar scenario here at MACS, and I think Joellen and yourself and Timothy have kind of experienced that with our thing here when we had some challenges, we had some staff changing, if you will, that we weren't expecting, and our team just picked it up, and between the Steves and the Lynns and the Marias and the rest of our team inside, we're able to make everything happen, and it's just great to be able to go into an office and know that even when there's a bad day, it's not going to be a bad day. The roof isn't going to fall in, things aren't going to collapse, everyone's going to take a deep breath, and we're going to figure out what we need to do next to make the most of that day or that situation.
Yeah, there's so many times where I have felt like our back is against the wall on a certain thing, and both of them have always come forward with some kind of solution. Yeah. And so very, very grateful. When you're association, we have you try to use your money so in a way that makes the most sense. Right. And having less staff allows you to do more things with those dollars. Right. And so I really like being lean like we are. Yeah. But it takes certain quality of people, and you have to have people that can play any position, that can do anything. Yep. And even for ourselves, right? It'd be nice if we had more time to just maybe influence and guide, but a lot of times we're rolling up our sleeves too and getting to work just like everybody else. And that's just part of working for a nonprofit. But that's the part I love. I love still being in a position where I feel like I'm a value and
Right.
not just a decision maker. I mean, that,
Right.
that part is important, but I think just as important is be able to step in and execute.
Yeah, I do that by every so often we have a truck that shows up that has to be unloaded, and I go volunteer to push the cart, and I'm like, I rolled up my sleeves, I'm good, it works. But you're right, when you're small, we're small, you're small, you have to really be able to do anything that's asked of you. You may not do it as well as the other person, you may not do it as quickly as the other person, but you have to be willing to do it.
Yeah, that's right.
And having a great team that can do that, just like we have at MACS, is so important. Before we close, I want to ask you about one other thing. I know that you have some hobbies. I know you have a particular passion. You want to tell me what that is from a hobby standpoint? You spend some outdoors time?
I was going to ask which hobby you're talking about, because there's really, my time is divided up into two.
Right.
You know, I love hunting.
Yeah.
Hunting is, it is just something that I find tremendous joy in.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, I get to hunt all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
Not often as much as I'd like to, although if you ask my wife, she'd probably say too often.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I really like spending time outdoors. I've really got into Western hunting the last few years, and went chasing bears in Idaho in the spring, and this fall I'll be in Colorado chasing elk, and it's something about sitting on top of the mountain and just without cell phone and without anything but your own thoughts that I find just incredibly enjoyable. And I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and I said, how many times do you have when you have nothing to do but think for 8 hours? Not for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, but for 8 hours. All you really do is think. And so, unfortunately, when I come back from that, I have lists of all these things that I'd like to do, and that gets into the conversation with Timothy and Joellen. But I really love spending time in the fall, and of course, I am a car guy. I love cars, like you.
Yep. And
you have your Subaru, and I have my Mopars, and I really love spending time building engines and putting cars together. And we're doing some really cool things with some friends now, and we're building some pretty big horsepower engines for the street, and I find it incredibly enjoyable.
do you race them?
Well, you know, racing is one of those things, you know.
Let me stop you, because this is probably a direction that we don't need to go, because we'll end up with who hit the bigger number. But you don't do any tracking of your cars. Is that correct?
I don't build them for that.
Okay.
Oftentimes, there's some events that I go to. So I'm a manual transmission guy. I like my 4-speed stuff.
Yeah.
And so there are a few events where they have just Mopar 4-speed classes.
Right.
And so I'll get in on that at the track. But oftentimes it's hard to compete with an automatic transmission with a trans brake, and so I don't.
But it's for fun.
It really is. We build them for the street to enjoy,
Right.
to do, so power tours and drag and drive events and things like that. And so they definitely get more time on the street. But sometimes you need that horsepower, and I like it to be there.
Yeah. See, we like all-wheel drive.
Yeah, I get it.
We just came back from just 2 weeks ago or whatever. We came back from making a run from southern New Jersey, Subaru headquarters, out to Lafayette, Indiana, to Subaru, the assembly plant. So we did that 675 miles in one day, and then on the way back we went and hunted for snow on the back roads of West Virginia, where your Mopar would have been parked on the side of the road, but you probably would have gotten to Indiana a lot faster than we would have.
Maybe.
Yeah,
You have a lot more top-end speed than our stuff does.
I guess that's possible.
But Timothy and I, we're doing the Hot Rod Power Tour this year.
Okay.
And so we're going to do the long haul. We're doing all stops. It starts in Kentucky and goes through Tennessee and up to into Ohio and ends in Indianapolis. And so we'll spend 5 days on the road with, he's got a Mustang now, and we'll spend 5 days in the Mustang and enjoying some 2-lane highway.
That's awesome. So I want to thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thanks for the time. I know how valuable time is at these events. And any closing thoughts?
Well, I really want to thank you and your staff. You guys you put on such a great event, and anybody who's never been to MACS, really needs to come out, because it is a tremendous event, and to partner with you It's been great on our end, and I really think the growth that we've seen during this meeting is you're responsible for that. You have people coming in early to attend our event, and so it's been great. And I know you're kicking off with golf tomorrow, and I'm excited to play golf tomorrow and attend some of your stuff. And I know your event's going to be great as well. But we really appreciate the partnership, both from you on the AMRA side, and now these two great organizations working together. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, it's our pleasure to have you guys here. I think it'll be mutually beneficial, and we'll see where things go in the future. So on behalf of MACS, I'm Peter Coll, and
I'm Jeff Cox.
Thank you for watching, and cheers.
This podcast is a production of MACS, the Mobile Air Climate Systems Association. MACS is the nonprofit trade association for the mobile air conditioning industry, representing manufacturers, Tier 1 suppliers, tool and equipment providers, parts distributors, and of course, service shops, owners, and technicians. MACS is a membership-driven organization serving the industry through training, education, advocacy, government relations, standards writing, and EPA Section 609 certification. If you'd like to learn more about MACS, please visit us on our website, www.maxmobileairclimate.org, where you can join MACS as a member. This podcast was produced by me, Steve Schaeber, and hosted by Steve Schaeber and Peter Coll. If you enjoyed this podcast, please give a thumbs up, and please subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever fine podcasts are downloaded. Thanks for listening.